To simply put things in perspective, let's assume a scenario. Well, Ferrari is one of the best cars to drive. You could drive a Ferrari around the world if you can afford it. But depending on the type of driving, is that really the best suited car for you? Think about it. Some people seek off-road thrill, some value the practicality of a vehicle over everything else. So, it would be best if you were sure of the purpose of a machine. Similarly, nowadays, bikes also have a purposeful design. Each type of bike serves a specific purpose. For instance, cargo bikes are meant to carry heavy loads. Mountain bikes are completely different from road bikes. Touring bikes and bikepacking bikes have their own set of similarities and differences. People like them because of the unique characteristics, but at the end of the day, people choose the type that will serve their purpose, or at least they should. Well, let's come to the point now. Today's video is about touring versus bikepacking bikes and their actual differences. Whether you're buying a touring bike or a bikepacking bike, it's easy to get confused if you don't know the basic differences. So, without further ado, let's get started. If you love bicycles and are obsessed with the idea of a multi-day tour, a touring bike is something you should look for. At least that's what the name touring bike suggests. They are purposefully designed for touring, but there's more to it. The touring bikes are equipped with sturdy steel frames so that they can carry heavy loads for an extended period. Plus, they're equipped with mudguards keeping different road conditions in mind. Besides, they feature a longer wheelbase than traditional bikes. The moral of the story is, they're durable and ideal for multi-day trips. There are a number of touring bikes available. For instance, there are Classic, Adventure, and Expedition. But what actually makes touring bikes a touring bike? Well, we will get to know the differences shortly. Bikepacking bikes, on the other hand, are meticulously designed for unpaved road conditions and trails. While they're not necessarily for serious off-roading like mountain bikes, they have improved suspension, wider tires, multi-day rigs, and many more features. However, there's really no perfect bike for bikepacking. According to your riding preference and trail selection, you just need to choose the kit and multi-day rigs you want to take with you. Touring bikes are designed to handle hefty loads. The safety test protocol for most touring and backpacking frames is usually around a rider and equipment weight of between 125 and 136 kilograms. While bikepacking bikes are designed closer to the minimum, top-tier touring bikes are regularly intended to handle more weight. As a result, a bikepacking bike is more lightweight than an overbuilt touring bike. Frame stiffness usually goes hand in hand with an overbuilt bike. Touring bikes regularly use the largest diameter, thickest wall tubing. As the loads are more minimal on a backpacking bike, frame designers can opt for lighter frame tubes, which aren't as stiff but result in a livelier ride when you go out pedaling without any of your luggage. But bikepacking loads can also be hefty, especially if you're carrying food for a week and 10 liters of water. If this is the sort of riding you do, you'll want to make sure your bikepacking rig is just as stiff as a touring bike. The mounts are usually different between touring and bikepacking bikes, but the lines are getting pretty blurry these days. A touring bike will always have rack and fender mounts, while a bikepacking bike will only sometimes have them. A bikepacking bike will almost always have a few cargo cage mounts, while a touring bike may not. A touring bike has long chainstays because there is usually a significant rear weight bias due to the large rear bags. Longer chainstays help shift the center of mass forward to get more stability and to make sure your heels don't strike your panniers when you ride. In comparison, bikepacking bikes usually have 20 to 30 mm shorter chainstays, so that short chainstays make a bike accelerate faster. Bikepacking bikes are generally designed for off-road terrains, but they're also good for paved road conditions. However, most bikepacking trips will consist of gravel roads, dirt tracks, single track, forest roads, double tracks, and unpaved roads. On the contrary, touring bikes are built predominantly for smooth roads. However, you may find many crossover between bikes nowadays. Occasionally, you can ride these bikes on dirt or gravel roads and single track trails. A touring bike should ideally have a climbing gear of around 20 gear inches or less. That helps you ride in any terrain. Additionally, a bikepacking bike can get away with higher climbing gear as you're likely to be carrying less weight up a hill. Across most bikepacking bike categories, 1X drivetrains are definitely the most popular option. 1X drivetrains offer more tire clearance and shorter chainstays when compared to a front derailleur setup. Similarly, 1X drivetrains are also popular in touring bikes because when you're cruising down on a mountain path at 40 mph, 1X drivetrains will help to pass the terrain quite smoothly. .26 inches of wheel size is standard for both of these bikes, but the main difference between these two types of bikes is the number of spokes. Certainly, spokes determine the strength of the wheels. As we have mentioned earlier, the touring bikes have to carry loads. Therefore, touring bike tires require at least 32 to 36 spokes. On the other hand, due to fewer load carrying requirements, bikepacking bikes don't require more than 28 spokes in their tires. The expected bikepacking trip duration is often shorter than a touring trip. This typically means that you spend more time around bike shops, so if something goes wrong, you can send parts in for warranty, obtain spares, or get a professional repair. A touring bike usually has the simplest parts available that require the essential tools found in shops anywhere in the world. That said, more complex parts such as integrated shifters and hydraulic brakes have recently proven to be quite reliable. Can a bike be designed for both bikepacking and touring? The answer is yes, if there is provision for touring racks and fenders or cargo cage bags, and if the frame geometry is much closer to a touring bike with a long wheelbase. A bikepacking bike can also be designed like a touring bike. You can use whichever bike you want according to your preference. However, suppose you want to optimize your setup. In that case, you should consider your total load, the surfaces you'll ride, the steepness of the terrain, the bag setup you prefer, and so on. Besides, with access to spare parts or workshops with the appropriate tools, a decent bikepacking touring hybrid could be just fine for you. So, that was a video about touring versus bikepacking bikes and the actual differences between them. Thanks for watching. Like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell if you find this video helpful.